Come on, guys, let's go. Come on, guys. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm the cat gardener. My name is Diana and I have a mini urban garden in St. Louis. It's been a very strange October with warm temperatures in the 80s, so it doesn't feel like autumn at all. That being said, I've managed to extend the growing season of my summer crops, and tomorrow is actually when the rain comes and the temperatures will actually drop. So today, come with me to do one last harvest of my summer crops for the year. I'm here in my front yard where I'll be harvesting my last 2 Roman zucchini. So I grew this Roman zucchini in a container and I've managed it vertically, and today I'll be harvesting these last 2 fruits. You can kind of tell that the plant is already at its tail end of the season because the size of the fruit is not as big as what you would normally get in July or August. Now that it's done for the season, I'm going to remove it and let the arugula underneath it keep growing. On this T-post, I don't need it anymore, so I'll just take it out of the ground. And that's what I consider a really good transition to autumn because I can keep growing the arugula in the same container. And now I'm going to take you to my parking pad where I have some summer herbs growing and a cantaloupe. So here I've got my summer crops, my rosemary and my basil, and I'm going to show you how I prepare them for the winter. I know they're not going to last in the ground because they like the heat, and I like using them for winter cooking. So for instance, rosemary is really good when baking chicken. Basil is nice to have around when you're trying to make a pizza, for instance. So they're not going to last in the ground, and what I did was I transplanted my in-ground rosemary and basil into these little containers, and when it gets cold I will move them indoors where I will keep them near a sunny window, and I can even use grow light if I want to, and that way I can keep them going during the winter for culinary uses. In fact, this rosemary has already been around for about a year already. Last winter I did the same thing where I brought it in and I basically kept it growing inside, and then in the springtime I replanted them outside. So they kind of been switching back and forth between in the soil, in the ground, and being in a container. And this one doesn't seem to mind. It's gotten quite big. And this way I can just have a good supply of these herbs even during the winter. I've got my bell pepper here, which I consider a failure. I think bell peppers are very difficult to grow in St. Louis because they require a very long season. You have to start them in January or February indoors as seeds, and then they become a little plant around May time, in which you can transplant outside, but they take a really long time to fruit. And as we know, the St. Louis summers become really, really hot very quickly, so there's really not a chance for these guys to make a lot of good fruit in the beginning of summer. It takes so long that basically I had this plant in the ground and it wasn't doing anything for the entire summer, and it was suffering because of the heat. So I actually decided to be clever about it and put it into a container. I dug it out of the soil, out of the ground, and I put it into this container, seeing if, hey, you know, what if I were to move it elsewhere, give it more shade? Would it suffer less from the heat and actually start producing peppers? Well, it finally started, but it's already October, and you know, the fact that we've also been having a warm October has been giving it the most optimal growing conditions. And despite having these really optimal growing conditions, this is all that I'm getting at the end of the day. So next year, I'm not sure if I'm going to do this again. In fact, there are people who overwinter peppers so that they can keep them essentially as perennial plants, and that way they get a jump start on the growing cycle, so they're not waiting for it to go from seed to plant and to mature fruit every year. The question for me is, should I do that with this plant, given that I've sacrificed so much to get it going? Well, I don't know, because I just don't think that it's worth it at the end of the day. I think next year what I'll do instead is plant smaller peppers that don't take as long to mature. Something like hot peppers that I can pickle, or Italian peppers that I can make a pasta with. Also in my parking lot, I have this cantaloupe here. And it's kind of funny to be growing a cantaloupe in October, but that's because I didn't grow one early enough in the summer. And when I was trying very hard in July and August, it was too hot and there were too many cucumber beetles and squash bugs decimating every little plant I would try. So in September, when the weather got nicer and there were fewer pests out there, I decided to plant a Minnesota midget. A Minnesota midget takes 1 month from seed to mature fruit, so I knew it was perfect for me because of my limited time. I also deliberately planted this out here where I know it would get the most sun out of anywhere in my garden, and I knew that was important because of my limited time and I didn't know what the October conditions would be like. For the last month, even though the weather has been quite pleasant and I've been seeing fewer cucumber beetles and squash bugs, I still see them around, and therefore I preemptively took action and sprayed Callan clay all over the leaves of this plant to protect it as much as possible. I avoided spraying the flowers because I wanted the bees to continue pollinating and doing their work for me. I've also noticed issues with aphids. Whenever I lift the leaves and look at the bottom of them, I see that they're infested with aphids. So what I did was I took packaging tape and used it to physically remove all of the little eggs. It wasn't that laborsome because at the end of the day, they're really just on these lower leaves and not so much on the higher leaves up top. A third pest I've been dealing with is ants. I keep seeing them crawling all over. I'm not sure what they want to eat. Maybe it's the fruit, maybe they smell it, or maybe they also want to do the leaves too. But what I did was I put diatomaceous earth down here below because I know that they're coming from the soil beneath. The final pest I've been dealing with is squirrels. So originally I had 2 of these melons and one of them got gnawed away at, and I bet it was squirrels. So for this remaining one, I knew I had to do everything I could to protect it to ensure that I would get a harvest at the end of the season. So I put a mesh bag around it. Not only did I do the mesh bag, but I also made a little makeshift cage-like thing with some fencing that I had lying around. It's not perfect, but I know the squirrels hate walking all over it, so they've been avoiding this melon for the last month, allowing it to mature, thankfully. And today is the last day of summery weather, so we're going to harvest this little guy here. This is the one that we're going to harvest. And actually, I have a second plant over there that made its own little fruit. And I just wanted to show you what that looked like, a younger version. This is probably, I don't think we're going to have enough weather for this one to mature. So that's unfortunate. But we're going to try to harvest this one and see what it's like. My first ever homegrown melon. And now I'm going to take you to the inside of my backyard where I'll show you the rest of my summer crops like raspberries and tomatoes. I'm here with my raspberry bush. It's quite young. I got it last year and I put it into the ground last spring, and already it's giving me plenty of berries. It's not as big and invasive as my black raspberry bush. That's a different story, and that's not in season right now. But this one keeps itself pretty compact, and despite its compact little size, it gives me plenty of berries that I've been eating every day for the last month or so, and it keeps growing. It's just really, really easy. When it comes to gardening, I think it's important to have a mix of annuals and perennials. Annuals are obviously a lot of work, but perennials like this, it's one and done. All you have to do is plant it into the ground and that's it. And even the second year, it can start giving you fruit. And I say that because now is actually a really good time to buy a raspberry plant and transplant it into the ground. You still have time, if you're in the right zone, to get it rooted before winter. And raspberries are really easy. They're incredibly disease resistant. I don't have to do any maintenance with it, not like I would with tomatoes, which I have to constantly prune, or with melons, which I have to do a lot of work to prevent diseases from decimating the melons. So I highly recommend trying a raspberry out. Now let's grab some raspberries to munch on. As for my tomatoes, they obviously love that we're still having all this warm, sunny weather, so they're doing pretty well. The only thing is the squirrels are trying to eat all my large cherry tomatoes, all the large ones like these. And that's because they know there's fresh juice inside of them. The fact that we've been having a drought for the last month has not been helping. I provide the squirrels with bowls of water everywhere in my garden, but despite that, they're clever. They know that fresh juice inside a tomato cannot be beaten. So I put these mesh bags around all the green tomatoes to protect them while ripening them and trying to prevent the squirrels from eating them. But the squirrels are very clever, and look what they did here. So I found that one of the mesh bags basically was gnawed into, and then they stole whatever tomato was in there, leaving just this little dry rind behind. Knowing that I'm competing with the squirrels, I'm going to harvest these tomatoes early. You can harvest tomatoes as early as 40% ripeness, and you can basically continue ripening it inside. And that way I will get it before the squirrels get them. For the smaller cherry tomatoes, I'm going to do the same thing, just harvest everything that's not green. Even if it has a teeny bit of color on it, I'll just let it ripen indoors. As for the completely green ones, what should I do with them? Well, I don't know what the future holds in terms of weather. If it's sunny but a little bit cold, they may still ripen because of the sun. But if it's going to be cold and gray for the next few weeks, then I guess I'll be making fried green tomatoes with them. This is my Chinese fuzzy melon. I have two of them, one here and then one back there. And this started off as an experiment because I had no idea if a Chinese fuzzy melon would grow well here at all. I found the seeds on a California seed website, and I decided just to try it out and see if it would work. And it surprisingly gave me very good results. So it's highly prolific, like all zucchinis and gourds are. But in addition to that, it is incredibly disease resistant. Like I have found cucumber beetles and squash bugs and aphids trying to get at it, but it seems to be pretty resistant to it. Granted, I have sprayed some kaolin clay to try to help it along, but I feel that these bugs haven't decimated this plant the way they would have had it been a cucumber or a melon. So let me show you how this plant works. It starts off as a little fuzzy thing, a little fuzzy nubbin like this with a cute little flower at the end of it, and it becomes bigger and bigger until it can get something to, say, this size. The longer you actually let it mature on the vine, the more it tastes like a winter melon, which we frequently use for making Chinese soups. But if you wanted to harvest it when it's more green and less mature, then it would be perfect for making just a little vegetable stir fry. Now compared to the other plant where it's just sprawling along the ground, this one is growing up a trellis, and it's way easier to manage the fruits this way. It's easier to spot them, and it's easier to get rid of diseased leaves. See how cute it is, just hanging on the vine? And sometimes I have to go to the other side to my neighbors to fetch the gourds. And this one is huge, so let's harvest this one. And that's today's harvest, the last summer crops of 2025. This is what I sweat and toiled over in intense St. Louis summer heat. Thankfully, autumn is finally here. Oh, and by the way, this cantaloupe I picked, totally not ripe. I will try to ripen it indoors, and I'll show you the results of that in next week's video. Today we're going to make a summery pasta salad with tomatoes from my garden, corn, and beans. Start by boiling a pot of water for pasta, and when it's boiling, add about 2 teaspoons of sea salt to it, and then add whatever short pasta to your liking. Cook it according to the time on the instructions. While the pasta is boiling, you have time to arrange your ingredients. Start by halving the tomatoes, and then take a handful of cilantro and cut it into small little pieces. If you're using canned beans, make sure you rinse and drain it well. If you're using fresh corn, great, but I'm using frozen corn today, and I made sure to thaw it ahead of time. When the pasta is ready, drain it and let it cool down. And now you're ready to mix everything together. First, add the pasta to a bowl, and then add the tomatoes, corn, beans, cilantro. Add olive oil, a few dashes of red wine vinegar, and don't forget to salt it. And finally, top with Asiago cheese, mix and enjoy. I'll put the recipe down below. That's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button down below and please subscribe to my channel for other updates. I'll see you next time. Bye.